The Rockets are one of the NBA's biggest surprises this season, taking a jump from the 11th to 2nd seed, 41 to 52 wins, and nearly winning a playoff series despite not having a credible shot creator in the opening round versus the Warriors. A top 5 defense, top 5 net rating, and nearly a top 10 offense, in spite of being one of the least efficient teams from a shooting perspective in the entire league. Simply put, they were the best team in the league on the margins. The #1 team at rebounding, whether it was Steve off the bench with Alperen Şengün or their perimeter players crashing the glass off misses. On top of that, their offensive rebounding helped generate the most shot attempts in the league, while being top 10 in creating turnovers and 11th in turnovers committed. Houston won games, the 4th most in the league, despite having inadequate personnel on the half court relative to their contemporaries. Culture is the key, and in adding in Kevin Durant, I firmly believe the Rockets are a top 3 team in the Western Conference. And if the bracket and health shakes out their way, they could be as good as #2. In this video, we're going to talk about exactly why and why I'm very excited to see KD in H-Town. I believe where everything starts with the Rockets is coaching, because Ime Udoka, who's reuniting with KD from their time together as his assistant and KD as a star in Brooklyn, are a perfect marriage in getting the Rockets to take that next step forward and potentially make a push to the conference finals this season. Durant entering his age 37 season brings them immediately what they sorely lacked, of course, but he also fits in very well without taking anything away on the defensive end. Something that I basically feel like I'm repeating from the Desmond Bane trade in my analysis on the Magic side, except Kevin Durant, even at this age, is a top 10 to at worst 15 player in the NBA. A lot of people will cite the Suns' terrible season this year where they went under 500 and missed the playoffs. But in the 20 games KD missed, the Suns went 3-17. In the games that he played, they were able to stay afloat because of his offensive gravity. Now by KD coming into a team that has an established culture and one of the most physical and disciplined defenses in the NBA, this is the exact nucleus that he needed to step into. One of the youngest groups in the NBA that plays with a competitive fire and a juice that very few teams bring in the regular season. Something that can kind of help the Rockets carry their way to 50 wins, as KD won't have to put in maximum effort night in, night out in games 1-82. But in the postseason is where KD is the closer. The offense catered to the strengths of Alperen Şengün and Steven Adams, who had fantastic seasons, while Amen Thompson and Tari Eason, like I mentioned before, excelled in their roles as cutters, relocating, crashing the glass, and getting out in transition off of steals. This helped Houston in many ways because they were one of the least efficient teams in the NBA, ranking the bottom 10 of all 3 shooting categories: threes, twos, and free throws. KD just so happens to be the most efficient perimeter star in the entire league, bar none. And this last year, the numbers bear it out. For a player to be top 10 in true shooting percentage, when almost a half of his shot attempts come from mid-range, is truly incredible. And it's why I believe after Michael Jordan, KD is the 2nd best scorer in NBA history. And you're still seeing him right now play at an all-NBA level, and his team didn't make the playoffs. Obviously, you can sift through how much of the fault was on KD versus supporting cast, because Phoenix this year truly was a total nightmare. Their lack of perimeter defense or stopper, coupled with a hopscotch front court going from one band-aid to the next, led to a ripple effect which saw the Suns be one of the 3 worst defenses in the league. Their culture was fractured, being on their 3rd coach in as many seasons, which apparently led to a lack of accountability from within. I believe some of that does fall on star power and the vocal leaders in the locker room. And when talking about Kevin Durant, the one criticism is his inability to galvanize teams and come together in the face of adversity. But what if you just add him into one of the best cultures in the league instead? A place with an established coach and core. To me, Houston brings the best coaching and defensive talent KD's had since his time in Golden State. And when you look at his tenure at the Nets and the Suns, they were more talented teams, yes, without a doubt, and their star power made them true contenders in the eyes of many. But those teams fizzled just as quickly as they were built due to injuries to key stars and impatience from the top down in the organization. With Brooklyn, they pulled the plug way too soon, and a lot of it was due to off-the-court issues, which led to Joseph Tsai, the owner, not wanting to stick with KD and Kyrie. And I believe looking back now, that was a mistake. Meanwhile, with the Suns, in that first year of KD, before he got hurt going into the playoffs, they had an identity with Chris Paul before they traded him for Bradley Beal. And you could very well argue, if KD were fully healthy and they had a full season together, they could have given the soon-to-be champion Nuggets that year an even better fight in the postseason. I don't believe those years fall on Kevin Durant as much as the narrative might suggest. He wasn't the floor raiser that those teams needed. And that's fine if you don't think he's a great floor raiser, because the Rockets already have one of the highest floors in the NBA. Because just when looking at KD's career, there hasn't been that one stop where he's been universally beloved. In Oklahoma City, he was one of the NBA's darlings until he left in 2016. But I believe in Houston, there is a different level of expectation, which could play into him being a far more appreciated figure. With Houston, unlike his previous 2 stops, they have built this team with patience. In the trade, they gave up 2 starters in Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green, but they still maintained almost the entirety of their young core. And surely the players that they value most, Amen, Alperen, Tari, and Jabari. And while they did give up those 2 starters, they don't truly feel irreplaceable. Dillon Brooks had a very good year this season, but even with his improved shooting, defenses don't fully respect him as a floor spacer. In the playoffs, he'll often be left open. His departure only creates more opportunity for Tari Eason and Jabari Smith in the starting lineup, fully back in, I expect. On the other side of things, I know the Jalen Green fan club is incredibly strong. You're talking about one of the highest profile athletes in the NBA, and as a former number 2 overall pick, the expectations have always been earth-shatteringly high. After trading James Harden, Houston chose Green to be their next elite scorer, a lead player on the offensive end. And this last year, he was their leading scorer on a 50-win team. It was also based purely out of necessity because no one else could do it on the squad. In many ways, he was the beneficiary of being in a great situation. But this last year, he failed to capitalize on the massive opportunity. Fandom aside, most fans can agree Green's development plateaued over the last 2 seasons. His jaw-dropping athletic tools were limited by average finishing, and his lack of a mid-range game made his 3-point shooting an absolute key in his game. The issue was he was one of the most streaky shooters in the NBA. And in the aggregate, making 35% wasn't quite good enough to be an efficient number 1 and not an efficient number 2 either, because Green is an average to below average playmaker and a solid to good defender. But when Houston drafted him, above average defense was not going to cut it. Elite scoring would be the barometer of how well the draft pick panned out. And ultimately, the best case scenario to me is Green becomes a player like Zach LaVine. But for the Rockets, given how high their expectations are, that likely won't be good enough. And even then, Jalen Green will never be as good of a shooter as Zach LaVine. Simple as that. I believe that best case scenario is very lofty. So when adding Kevin Durant, he is an upgrade in every single way. When talking about the KD trade to Houston, the Rockets had the Suns' hand from the very beginning. KD made it very clear the 3 landing spots and targets where he would like to end up. And the Rockets were the clear best team on that list right now. That short list mattered all the more when he had 1 year left in his contract, which did somewhat plummet his trade value and allowed him to pick where he wanted to end up. The Rockets took advantage while still giving the Suns some intriguing value. No matter how you want to shake it, giving the Suns back their pick this year, which is the 10th overall selection, is really valuable for Phoenix, while the Rockets had no room given their inundated young talent pool. Just last season, the 3rd overall pick in Reed Shepherd hardly played as a rookie, yet was arguably the best prospect in last year's class. Houston is also reportedly planning to bring back Fred VanVleet after declining his $44 million team option, which for next season leads us to a very likely 8 to 9-man rotation of Fred VanVleet at point guard, Durant, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith in the wings, and then Alperen Sengun at the 5. Off the bench, the opportunity is there for Reed Shepherd to come in and be this team's lead second creator, while Cam Whitmore and Steven Adams will round out the rotation. Whitmore is an interesting player. I liked him a lot out the draft. He has all of the tools, but defensively he had a lot of lapses last year, which led Ime Udoka to cutting his minutes from the lineup. As a result, you could see this team make a move in free agency with that mid-level exception to bring a more proven and established veteran. And who knows, there's also a chance they can end up trading Cam Whitmore for a veteran as well. Earlier on in the video, I said, culture is the key. And in adding in Kevin Durant, I firmly believe the Rockets are a top 3 team in the Western Conference. And that to me is in part to how open the Western Conference is after defending champion Oklahoma City Thunder. Not only are the Rockets well ahead of schedule, but they're developing and still getting better, while 2 of the league's oldest teams in the Warriors and Clippers are decrepit, with glaring injury and age-related concerns for both squads. While Minnesota and the Nuggets have massive questions to answer this offseason, which could lead to them completely shaking up the core of their teams. Lastly, the Lakers acquired Luka Doncic but have a crater-sized hole at the center position with very limited assets to improve there. Unlike the Rockets, who still possess numerous valuable incoming picks on top of having all of their own in the next couple of years. In 2027, they have the Suns' first-round pick. On top of that, 2 pick swaps from the Nets in that same season and the Suns in 2029. Houston has more than enough ammo to make another play when the time is right, and that move could still be soon. For as well as Durant has played individually, and as much as he brings to the table, turning 37 in September makes it clear this is a bridge to the next era of Houston basketball, one which allows Durant to slide into the lineup and help them win now while still prioritizing player development. And now the opportunity to play with one of his former coaches, who worked with him in Brooklyn, makes this to me the perfect landing spot, where KD's generational gifts will be put on full display while supporting him in all the ways he was not in the last 5 seasons. Durant finished 6th this season in points per game, while shooting 53% from the field, 43% from 3, and 85% at the foul line. He's not going to get to the rim a ton, and he doesn't get to the foul line either a whole lot. And I believe that's okay when you have the best rebounding group in the NBA and a ton of young, high-profile athletes who crash the rim consistently in the half court and in open space. There's going to be some inherent limitations from a playmaking standpoint, and I believe that's where the expectation is. Amen Thompson grows into this team's point forward, that the offense soon starts to funnel through and prioritizing their best prospects' development. But I believe that's the beauty in Houston. A franchise with a very long runway should take their time and not rush the process of developing young talent. Instead, they should be keen on getting those players as much in playoff reps as possible while supporting them with one of the best players of all time. So with all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, follow for more content like this. As always, until next time.